Now we're going to work on one of the most important aspects of lacrosse, and that is passing. Our goal in the Level Up training videos is to get you a consistent and accurate throwing motion. By working on the different steps of a throw and the different mechanics with your feet, with your hips, with your shoulders, and with your arms, we're going to make sure that every pass you throw is accurate and quick, going right where you want it to go. So if you're new to lacrosse, one of the things to think about is how lacrosse relates to other sports. Whenever we're teaching a new lacrosse player, we tell them to think back to their experiences with other sports. If you've thrown a baseball, thrown a softball, or thrown a football, you're already pretty familiar with the lacrosse throwing motion. If I just set the lacrosse stick down for a second, pick up the lacrosse ball, and pretend like this is a baseball or a softball, if someone told me to throw this, what I would do is bring it back like this. So let's take a look at our form here. I have my opposite foot forward. I'm throwing right-handed. My left foot is forward. I'm not facing straight at my target. I'm turned sideways to my target. My arm is reaching back and extended out away from my body. My elbow is not in at my side. My hand is not out in front of my chest. Elbow is out, hand is reaching back. This is good throwing form for baseball, softball, or football, and it's also good throwing form for lacrosse. If I simply put the lacrosse ball down, pick up my lacrosse stick, and put it in the same position, I've now gone from good throwing form with a baseball or a football to good throwing form with a lacrosse stick. My throwing hand is in the same position, just instead of holding a baseball or a football, I'm holding a lacrosse stick. So let's go over that one more time. When we're getting ready to make a throw, we want our opposite foot forward. We don't want to face straight at our target like this. If you think of a pitcher in baseball or a quarterback in football, they are rarely throwing like this. They're turned sideways so they can rotate and create power. We'll talk about that a little bit more in a second. Opposite foot forward. I want to be on my toes, nice light stance. I don't want my heels heavy on the ground. I want my heels lifted a little bit on my toes, so I'm ready to move as I throw. I'm going to extend my elbows out away from my body. We say pretend like there are oranges in your armpits. Sounds kind of funny, but if there are oranges in your armpits, you wouldn't be able to have your arms closed like this. They would have to be out a little bit. That's how we want our arms when we throw with the lacrosse stick. We want to reach back. What we tell our players is if you're looking straight ahead at your target, you should just barely be able to see your bottom hand out of the corner of your eye. If you can really easily see your bottom hand, or if you can see your top hand, your hands are too far out in front of you, you're going to end up pushing the ball with your top hand, and it's going to be a weak pass that probably goes very low. So instead of having those hands out in front of us, we want to reach back so I can just barely see that bottom hand out of the corner of my eye. Next, we'll go into the throwing motion. And throwing is a two-handed motion. Our bottom hand is pulling, our top hand is pushing. So we get in our throwing stance, we reach back, we want to point our end of the stick. This is called the butt end, kind of a funny name, but wherever the end of the stick is pointing is generally where the ball is going to go. So if I'm lining up to throw a pass to the camera, but my butt end is pointing this way, when I go to make that pass, the pass is probably going to go too far to my right, to your left. If I line up like this, and the end of the stick is pointing that way, the pass is probably going to go to my left, to the camera's right. So we want to set up with that butt end generally pointing towards our target. As you develop your throwing motion, you might be off a little bit, but generally we want the end of the stick pointing right at our target. Next, we're going to take a good step with our opposite foot. Just like throwing in any other sport, it starts with your feet. A good throw, a good pass starts with a good step. I'm stepping with the opposite foot. I'm bringing my hands forward on a plane. So before I start pushing and pulling like this, I want to bring that stick straight forward on a plane. So as the stick comes forward, my bottom hand is going to begin to pull down. My top hand is going to begin to push up. My hands are working together to make that throw. It's not just my top hand pushing. It's not just my bottom hand pulling. Both hands are working together. Push, pull as we bring that stick forward, and that's going to give you a good accurate pass. We want to point at our target as we throw and follow through, but we don't want to stop our follow through right here. We want to point at our target and then continue to have our hands follow through to our opposite hip. So to show you that again, bringing the stick back, step, bring it forward on a plane, push, pull, point at your target, but hands continue to rotate through to your opposite hip. Real important. Hands go from ear to opposite hip. Ear to opposite hip. And the reason we do that is it gets your full body involved. If you watch my shoulders and my waist, as I go from ear to opposite hip, you can see that my shoulders are turning. Same motion as a pitcher, trying to create speed on a pitch. Same motion as a quarterback, trying to put velocity on a pass. We want to have hard, accurate passes in lacrosse as well, so we use that same motion. Elbows out, reaching back, step, forward, push, pull, ear to opposite hip, and rotate through. If you practice that over and over, you don't even need a lacrosse ball. You can just go through repeated repetitions of going through that throwing motion with your right hand and with your left hand or your non-dominant hand. Just getting used to that motion is going to help you throw consistent, accurate passes over and over.